Welcome back to TTC. On our last lumen test video, we built a DIY style light integration sphere using some actual lab testing to calibrate our very not made in a lab version with some encouraging results. We also got a lot of feedback from you guys about where we could improve and what we could do to show you the info brands won't. So today we're going to do a whole lot of that. And what we're going to do that too is the absolute best-selling and flashiest of the flashlights on Amazon.com. While last episode we tried to pick some brands that might be playing an honest game, we're taking the gloves off this time. We reckon that the best-selling LED lights on Amazon, which also happen to be some of the most affordable, might just be stretching the truth a little in order to draw those eyes to their buy box. To draw a fair comparison though, we'll also be employing more expensive, quote, more legit options to see if there's a trend among online sales or if there actually is some performance to back up the price difference. Basically, of all these lights, these two cost $120 and advertise 1600 lumens combined, and these four on the right cost only $90 together and total around 93,000 lumens, or so they say. Let's see about that. Today we're going to measure their light lumen output, test their runtime with a newly added lumen level overtime live graph, record their charge time with some enlightening information there, then basically burn these with acid, drop them from heights, and take them apart to see exactly why some of these cost a fraction of others, and if that makes any difference for you, whether you're a professional relying on these every day or just need to find your way back to the campsite. If that all sounds like your cup of tea, consider subscribing or visiting our t-shirt shop below. We continue to turn down 1 to 2 sponsors a day from tool brands and, well, everything from food box subscription services to actually NordVPN, in hopes that we can continue buying these tools ourselves with nothing between us and you guys getting this information. Starting at the top of the sales rank on Amazon, in the bottom of the price list today, is the Gearlight S1000, and we do mean top. This flashlight section of Amazon has this pair of $15 flashy boys consistently ranked number 1 in sales. And even number 2 is basically these same lights, similar packaging, same specs, and a different brand name. An Amazon sales estimator puts these sales of just one item at 32,500 per month. Are these masses being duped? Well, the S1000 does simply advertise high lumen and comes with 2 for that price, so you can't be all that mad if they simply work, we feel. But what's high lumen? And these S1000s don't come with any batteries. They have a sort of triple cylinder AAA action, or 18650. Is high lumen with the AAAs or is it with the 18650? We'll check it out with the AAA batteries first, which is sort of how it's set up out of the box. Waiting 30 seconds, and that's 245, 246, 244, 244 lumens. Really doing these Kirkland batteries dirty with that. Sure doesn't seem all that high. My niece can count to that. Well, let's try with a quality 2600 mAh 18650 cell then. Maybe we can get high lumens from that. So we're seeing 326, 325, 324, 325 lumens. If you guess 325 lumens for high lumen LED flashlights, you're certainly not us, because we would have been way off. But hey, $7 to $8 a piece, hard to be too upset. Next up in price at $16 to $19 and sales rank when you ignore UV lights is also from Gearlight. Their S2000. We're seeing a trend here, but some specs from Gearlight this time. 1200 real lumens, as opposed to the other kind. Virtually indestructible, can survive a 10-foot drop. Happy to test that out today. And a weighty feel delivers a sense of quality that smaller flashlights simply can't. Well, they got that part right. With the 6 AA batteries this light takes, it does not take any rechargeable batteries, unfortunately. It's heavy and big. They call it a mid-size flashlight, and I suppose it isn't a D-cell mag light, but in this crowd, she's got some heft. We're not LED scientists, but I imagine we should be in the ballpark of 1200 if this makes a real 1200. Rocking those 6 Kirkland AA batteries. I'll admit this thing is bright in person. It looks as it should for a light this size. So we're actually seeing 777, 66, 760, 755, and it sort of just goes down from there. We're calling that a real 760 lumens on this one, folks. Here's medium on this light, which is about 400, and low as well, which is 200, 220. Our next Amazon special is a favorite of the channel for its sheer specs alone, the Decomo XHP50, or as we call it, the 90,000 lumen one, because it's unlikely to cause much confusion when you got specs like that. It advertises, without any intended irony or comedic effect, 90,000 lumens and a huge 3200 milliamp hour 26650 battery to support that. One they say you should not drain all the way, otherwise it will not accept the charge again. What we'd like you to do is go down to the comment section and give us a guess at how many lumens you think this 90,000 Decomo light makes. At $28, you can probably safely assume not the 90,000, as that would probably melt your hands right off and act as a lightsaber more than a flashlight, but we're curious as to your guesses. With the fire extinguisher close by, we'll let her loose for 30 seconds before punishing our light integration sphere with 525? 519? 522? Basically 520 lumens on high. And it is high. Here's medium, 250 or so lumens, and low, which is 110 or so, and strobe and flash party modes. But it would have been a much better party with 90,000 lumens rather than 520, we think. If you guessed around 325 for high lumen and 520 for this 90,000 lumen light, then you win a Buffalo nickel, because the closest any of us got were around 30% higher than that. To sort of go up against these best-selling value options is a more expensive but also very highly spec'd Olight S2R Baton 2 we'll be testing today. This one is courtesy of a viewer, Ryan C., who wanted to make sure we included Olight ASAP, this being the first of many we'll eventually include, I'm sure. This Olight is itty-bitty compared to the others, which we like for our work. Any extra space is always welcome. It advertises 1150 lumens of maximum output, but a price tag of around $70. However, at that $70, you do get a 3200 milliamp hour 18650 cell, accessories, and a very nice magnetic snap-to-attach charging cable that also works with the stand-style attachment you can use with many other Olights. Initially, what we don't like about this Olight is getting into its modes. To get into full turbo boost, you have to sort of hold down to unlock, then hold to cycle, and double-click to get into the 1150 lumen turbo mode. It's nice that they hide away the flash and strobe party modes away, as cycling through those is annoying, but it's kind of lame that you have to get into a special area and activate its advertised lumen. We're hoping this drought in the lumen department can be solved with a wallet. It advertises 1150 lumens in turbo mode, something Olight advertises it only stays in for a couple minutes before going down to 400. So let's see, it makes 1225, 1250, 1227. We're calling that 1225. While you're not often needing that lumen level, especially as a mechanic, and we think only being in this mode for 2 to 4 minutes is probably for heat mitigation reasons or whatever, Olight coming to the rescue, overall breaking into the thousands for the first time on this series and saving us from a string of disappointment. That's almost 100 lumens more than they advertised. Good stuff. Our last pair of lights are thin wand style inspection lights, sort of cordless drop lights as we call them. The infamous Dr. Pepper model for $18. Yes, I know it says Dr. Prepare, but they're really teeing that one up for us. And the model that they, let's say, were heavily inspired by, the 40SL Max from Astro. For years, we've been seeing lots of mechanics, including Eric O. from South Main Auto, with 40SL type lights like this, and very affordable Wish.com or eBay clones of that original. So this many years removed from that original light, and with Dr. Pepper advertising higher specs in its battery size and lumen output, we wanted to see how this $18 model compares to the $50 later version 40SL Max. Right away we noticed sort of a ABS plastic versus glass fiber nylon difference. We'll have to see how that holds up later. So let's get into today's testing. The 40SL Max advertises 450 lumens. You gotta wait 30 seconds per the ANSI FL1 standard. And in our integration sphere, we're seeing 460, 456, 450, let's say 455 lumens. Pretty spot on if our 10x this lumen readout calibration is holding true. Now let's see if the Dr. Pepper, which advertises a whole lot more at 700 lumens, stands up. And waiting 30 seconds, we do like how this light has those charge level lights on the back. And oof, that's 340, 360, 367. We're calling it 360 lumens, so about half of what's on their box and in the title of their product. Hopefully that large battery and that low lumen level will make for a good result on its runtime test. A lot of you in the comments mentioned that with the FL1 standard, most brands will likely be making theoretically what they advertise in the lumens, but their brightness over the course of use is what kills your experience. If it's bright in the first minute, then dim for 4 hours, it's not exactly doing you a lot. So we'll be doing this testing with lumen level readings every 20 minutes. Our light meter can actually data log over time, but in some of these and other lights in general might get too hot for our sphere and melt it altogether, affecting future calibration and testing. The 40SL Max advertises 3.5 hours, and the Dr. Pepper doesn't really give you a runtime at full power, just a medium at 10 hours, which is hard to do on an adjustable light. So the 40 starts off higher, of course, as it makes more, then both sort of start to draw down as adjustable lights seem to do. The Dr. Pepper diving down quite a bit faster, all the way to 180 lumens by the first hour, then sort of sporadically losing output from there and gaining some. The SL Max has a more gentle curve, but it's losing output over time as well. 350 lumens by hour 1, 300 by hour 2, but ultimately lasting the whole 3 hours and 40 minutes before its output becomes pretty much useless. The Pepper died off right about 2 hours and 40 minutes, and its charge level actually went from 2 lights to 0, skipping the 1 charge level light altogether. We also measured temperatures at these stages, which tell a similar story. The SL Max's light bar backside gets quite hot at 113 degrees, then 108, then quickly drawing down sort of normal numbers into the 90s and trailing off with less output over time. The Pepper stays relatively warm but never hot on this 72 degree ambient day, but heat's not really a problem for these as your hands are pretty far removed from the light source and it doesn't really ever feel hot on either of these tools. Let's check out the flashlights now, which tell a whole new story. The Olight drops quickly, coming down to its 400 lumen level after switching out of turbo mode automatically. And the large gear light does something similar here, dropping pretty quick, albeit not from any mode change, it's still in high, just a significant drop in general. The Docomo 90K takes a huge drop out of nowhere and loses its top spot quite quickly, still on high there as well. The small gear light then tanks, only lasting 1.5 hours, even with that 2600 mAh 18650 in there. More surprisingly, the Docomo 90K does the same, pretty much dead by 2 hours, with its huge 26650 battery. And those lumen levels, the Olight keeps trucking along super stable at its 400 lumen level setting, which we measure as 385. The large gear light still trucking along like a champ, but that output becoming more and more useless. The camera's compensating here in order for us to read the timer. At 3.5 hours, the Olight drops, falling quickly and becoming not so useful by the 4 hour mark. This mode is rated for 3 hours and 50 minutes, so I'd say pretty spot on. The 90K light and the small gear light really tanked here. Our next tests bring some light as to why. First, running temps. The story here is how similar 3 of the lights are for the most part, for most of the runtime, yet the small gear light being the exception. 108 to 112, 113 degrees for most of its life, and nowhere else for your hand to go either. Holding this light is like grabbing onto an aluminum shift knob that's been sitting out in the sun all day. That's how it's draining its 2600 mAh battery we supplied in under 2 hours at only around 200 lumens. It's basically a heater. The Olight, again, consistent temps from consistent light output, sort of makes sense. Charging these lights also brought some discoveries that helped explain these performances. You guys pointed out rightly in our first video that total charge milliamp hours does not equal battery capacity due to charge transmission losses, so we won't be fully assuming that here, but it does show us some charge time, which is useful, and highlights some irregularities, case in point in this next test. The SL Max can accept 1 amp here when drained, and the Dr. Pepper looks to accept around 0.77 amps for around 1 watt less. The Astro is supposed to take up to 5 hours to charge. Ours took, let's see, 4.5 hours, charging up to nearly 3,300 milliamp hours. The Dr. Pepper took only 3 hours and 11 minutes to charge, but just 1,650 milliamp hours. This light has 3,200 in its title, but only accepted 1,650 minus any charge losses. That helps to explain why it lasted less than 3 hours, while only generating really 150 to 200 lumens most of that time. Only the Docomo 90K and the Olight Baton 2 came with rechargeable batteries this episode, so let's take a closer look at those. The Docomo is accepting about 1.14 amps, or almost 6 watts out the gate. That's good. With its charge level gauges full, 2.5 hours in, it's showing only 2100 milliamp hours, but still accepting over 3 watts. This is when someone would unplug the light since it's showing full, but let's charge it overnight again and see what it takes. 4.5 hours, of charging and 3120 milliamp hours, similar to the 40SL there. A whole 1000 milliamp hours after showing full charge. Not a very good brain chip on that board figuring out what voltage level to indicate for full. Now for the Olight, we had to get a fancy gold edition charging gizmo for this one. Links in the description below. It's compatible with Quick Charge 2.0 and 3.0, since Olight advertises a whole lot of jargon when it comes to their charging process, and this needs to be able to navigate those different charge protocols as they're called. Using a Chromebook USB-C charger here to be able to deliver the light whatever it asks for. The magnetic cable snaps on the end here really nicely and turns to a different color to illuminate red or green for charging in full. Only accepting 4.3 watts here though, so 0.85 amps. It's showing Samsung Quick Charge 2.0 protocol here though, but really not charging all that fast for what we expected. And about 5.7, 5.8 ohms of resistance, which of course will go up as the battery is charged. But Olight sells this cool wall mount, so we're curious how much extra resistance you get when you strap on one of those. Nope, it's still 5.7 ohms, that's pretty neat. With it fully charged, let's take a look. 2,940 of its 3,200 milliamp hours or so charged in about 4 hours. Pretty standard within this group considering all the fancy protocols it uses, although Olight does apparently slow down the charging considerably towards the tail end of charging to prolong the battery life. The next thing we're sort of curious about is at the price point of these value bargain bin lights on Amazon, do they actually hold up? Making lumens is fine, but if dropping your backpack breaks them, then it can't be all that useful long term. Gearlight advertises a 10-foot drop for both of their large and small versions. With all of the heavy batteries in the S2000, we're a bit squeamish to see that. And the Docomo 90K says 2 meters or about 6.5 feet. Let's see. First up is the Gearlight Large from 3 feet a couple times. Scrapes up easy, but still works. Gearlight Small also does fine. 90K from 3 feet, also fine. From 6 feet, things change quickly. After 3 drops, the large Gearlight, full of those heavy AA batteries, gives up the ghost. The entire sort of lens housing broke, and the light will no longer turn on. The small Gearlight didn't seem to mind, and the Docomo is still ticking. At 9 feet, the Docomo 90K has served a hot lunch of pavement and calls it quits for life. Multiple things inside broke, the lens adjustment no longer works, sort of loose. The entire electronics inside shifted forward, breaking things, and the micro USB slot has moved forward out of the range, and the button no longer clicks, does not turn on. Then again, Docomo said 6 feet, so we can't be all that mad at 9 foot killing it. The small Gearlight sort of wins this overall, 12 feet, didn't mind. The 40SL Max says nothing about impact resistance in general, and the Dr. Pepper says it's rocking enhanced ABS plastic, which is durable enough. So let's take a look at that enhanced ABS first. It definitely scrapes up and can be shaved off like ABS compared to what appears to be PA66 nylon on the SL Max. But one thing we're running into a lot is brake cleans. Some plasticky tools work okay with it, others straight up melt. So here's some of the good stuff, squirty squirt. The 40 doesn't seem to mind too much, and the Dr. Pepper is a whole nother story. You can sort of scrape it off with a knife or even your fingernail, and it becomes sort of a finger painting situation. Spread it all around and it gets loosey-goosey. Let's head outside and see if the pavement likes it as much as the brake clean. 3 foot, 6 foot, 9 foot, they're still doing fine. Let's break out the ladder. 15 foot, yeah, that's too much for the magnetic base on the Pepper. It both broke off and sort of shattered this base magnet. But both lights are still functioning, actually up to 20 feet in this case. Let's pop them open and see if we can find any corners they cut there as well. With the Dr. Pepper open, the battery does say ICR 3200 on the wrapper, but open up inside and we couldn't find any real name, brand, or manufacturer tied to it. Looking up the numbers we found similar looking cells up to 3200 milliamp hours, but with the one we got, we only got 1650 out of it. Looking at the board, it's not too bad. Some pinned connectors here where we expected to find some solder pads only. Not hugely complex, but let's see the SL Max. Yeah, a few more things on this one here. 4 higher value 1.2 ohm resistors here versus having only 2, meaning it's set up for sending more current to that light panel for higher lumen output. That light panel is also connected permanently to the aluminum heatsink on the back rather than just being placed on top of it like the Dr. Peppers. Appears to have a chip here for integrated battery overcharge, that's good, and more capacitors in general, smoothing out the power delivery to the LED board. And it has an LG 18650 battery here that has actual LG part numbers when you open it up. Instead of ranking these on a chart with a point system like we normally do, you guys told us, and we agree, these tools might not fall into a point ordering system as well as the other tools we test. So here's a chart of all of our findings. We feel with this info, most of which brands are not going to provide you with, you can make your own decisions, informed ones. Of the cheapest lights, we sort of liked the large gear light the most. It made a lot of lumens and for quite a while with AA batteries, but only being able to be used with AA batteries is sort of a killer for us. It's just sort of big as well. Obviously the two most expensive options did the best today, but enough to justify their price points? Frankly, yes, pretty much. You just get more runtime, rechargeable batteries, includes an actual charger, in Olight's case a very useful one. They're brighter and they stay bright longer. But neither the 40SL Max nor the S2R Baton really made it into our favorites list so far. The Baton's really a 400 lumen light, maybe everyone's used to turbo modes, but putting 1150 on the box, and it made more today, can only run for 2-4 minutes that way. I'm not saying you need 1150 for a small light, but we'd rather have a slightly larger flashlight that can stay at 600, 800, even 1000 for as long as we'd like, rather than one that shoots down on the lumens all the time. And its modes, getting into them were sort of annoying for us, but we're not accustomed to the Olight life, I guess. The SL Max, nothing wrong with it, but there's been better and brighter models since that have come out and work better, we think, even from Astro. It's just that this is the one everyone copied, so we were interested in that cost-benefit analysis of saving some coin, going the Dr. Pepper way, or buying the original. This is just our combined opinions, of course. With episodes like this one and those in the future, you can make those calls yourself. We hope you'll stick around by clicking some things to see the next episodes, and thank you for joining us.